Greetings, friends. Welcome to today's devotion, Psalm 109. Once again, we have a rather lengthy psalm, Psalm 31 verses. So that is beyond the number of verses that I would normally read the psalm to you. So I'll let you pause the video and go ahead and read this psalm and then come back for the rest of the devotion. So this psalm it seems as though it is an individual prayer, an individual who's praying to God because of accusations that have been made by someone who at one point seems to have been a friend, someone that the psalmist had done kind and benevolent things for, even prayed for that person. And in return for that, the enemy now, this person who has betrayed the psalmist, is, it seems, depending on the translation you have, it seems as though they have called down curses upon the psalmist. Now, you may have a translation that is different than the NRSV, the one that I typically read as my Bible for studying from. Yours may make it sound as though the one who wrote this psalm, and it's attributed to David, is crying out to God for curses to be laid upon his accuser or his enemy. Mine, on the other hand, starting with verse 6 and going all the way through verse 16, actually a little bit farther than that, goes beyond all the way to verse 19. My translation has it as, this is quoting the accuser. This is quoting the enemy of the psalmist as for a curse that he has called down upon the psalmist, the one who wrote this psalm. So I'm going to go with that for this part of the devotion, or for my devotion today, rather than doing it from a perspective of the psalmist as asking God to curse and basically destroy his enemy, which in the Psalms is not all that uncommon, but makes for a much more difficult devotion because that's not how we know as Christians that we are supposed to act. Jesus himself said for us to love our enemies. It's like pouring hot oil over their heads. So I'm looking at this from the perspective of the psalmist, of one that is accusing him and crying out or calling on curses for the psalmist. And you can sense by the psalm itself that this has been soul-crushing for the one who wrote this psalm. To have a friend, someone he cared about, someone who was close to, someone he had done nice things for, to betray him and wish for ill to come upon him in very significant ways, really awful ways, actually. You can understand why that would be a very, very difficult and a very hard thing to have to deal with. Perhaps in your life sometimes you've been betrayed by a friend or a family member or somebody that you were close to or did nice things for, and then they turn around and sort of stab you in the back or even do things that cause you harm. And that's certainly a way that some things that happen, that's something that happens in this world, in this life, just because of the nature of humankind. But even if you don't have somebody who has accused you of those things, even though somebody who is wishing ill upon you or trying to bring about harm for you, we do live in a world that has, certain standards, and it can be very, very judgy. For men, women, for people of different ethnic backgrounds, religions, there's always somebody out there to criticize you for not being perfect, and that is a standard that obviously we know is impossible to live up to. Nobody can have the perfect body shape, hair color, whatever. None of us can live a perfect life that is exemplary, that everybody looks at and thinks of as perfect. So there's always going to be some sense of a lack of self-worth in each one of us. For some, it's much more significant than it is for others. But I think all of us feel self-conscious about certain things about who we are as a person, our personality traits, characteristics, our physical appearance, whatever it is. There's something in each of us that can be made to feel self-conscious, and the world picks on those things, or whatever they are. They don't come from our own self necessarily. They come from other people and from the messages we received in this world. But as the psalmist does in this one, crying out to God and asking for God to help in salvation according to his steadfast love. If you look towards the last 5 or 6 verses, it says that God saves them from, he saves the poor and the needy from those who would condemn them to death. Well, in a broader sense, God is also the one who saves us from that lack of self-worth, for our own critical thoughts about ourselves, our own awareness and self-consciousness about our imperfections. And God sees us differently. God doesn't make mistakes. God doesn't make mistakes in creating the world, the heavens and the earth, and he certainly didn't make any mistakes in us. Yes, we are unique. Those character traits that we often are critical about ourselves or feel self-conscious about are the things that make us very unique individuals. And I'm certain that by far there are way more people that love us and care about us and like us for who we are than the few that don't, or even the voices from the world that tell us something different. But God, of all people, is the one who sees us as his beloved, as his perfect child, as one who is spotless and maybe different, maybe unique, but that's what makes us so special. It's not what makes us imperfect. It's what makes us special. And that's how God sees us. That no matter how you feel about yourself, whatever your shortcomings might be, God doesn't see those in you and doesn't judge you on those things. If there are things that we can improve upon ourselves, then yes, God's going to want to help us in that and want to see us help to improve ourselves, but not necessarily just because, or definitely not because he'll love us more if we're better than the version that we are of ourselves. God loves us so much that he wants us to strive to be the best version of ourselves, not because he'll love us more, but because perhaps we will feel better about ourselves. And that's an important thing for us too. But know that regardless of the voices in your head, the voices are coming from other people, or the voices and messages that we hear in this world about what it means to be a human being and how imperfect we are, that God sees you differently. God sees you as his beloved and perfect child. And you can rest in that. But when you're feeling down, call out to God, cry out to God, and give him thanks for creating you to be who you are. That's our devotion for today. We get back to a shorter one tomorrow in Psalm 1010, or 110. I don't know what 1010 is. Psalm 110, but until then, know that you are loved.